Welcome to the Pastor's Podcast. Pastor Scott here with Pastor Reggie.
Hello.
And Steph Moss.
Hi, guys.
This is, I just realized a lot of time has gone by since we recorded these, but on the podcast feed, this will be 2 podcasts in a row with Steph Moss.
You're
Excellent.
welcome.
Yes.
Excited to have you here. We recorded the first one before we went to Uganda about the budget.
That was before?
Or did we do it after?
That?
Did we record it after?
It's all a blur, guys.
It
The last
is
month is a blur.
Guaranteed. Actually, I don't even know. Now that I said it, I don't even know.
I don't know either.
But we are here to talk about the recent short-term trip that a number of us took to Africa Renewal University, and more specifically about our partnership with AfRU. And so excited to get to dive in, get to hear from your perspectives. I know we heard about it briefly on Sunday with God's Activity, but that's one of the things I love about this context, about the podcast, is an opportunity to talk a little bit more in depth and share a little bit more about our hearts. So I want to start off with the question that I know you've gotten a lot since you got back was, so how was your trip? How do you answer that?
I feel like that's like the most common question that I think people get is, how was your trip? But I feel like for me, it was the since it was my first time and Steph's manyth time, so the sort of different experiences. But I feel like for me, I knew even before I left, this is going to be amazing. This isn't one of those things where like it happens and it's like, oh, that was okay. It's like, no. It's just a question of how amazing is it going to be. And because of that, I feel like it was going to take time. I feel like it was experiencing it itself and then just getting back and then a month later, like now, and then 6 months later, and then a year later, just, it's one of those like really like seminal moments of just like, that was just an amazing time. But I think because of that, it is kind of hard to distill and be like, all right, cool. I'm gonna take all this and just give it to you in like 3 sentences. I don't have that. Don't have that one ready to go. But I'm sure just both you've heard it on Sunday, but also seeing it through the pictures and even as you listen to this podcast, you'll see like how amazing the trip was. But like to distill it down, there's too much.
So I actually really appreciate you mentioning that because I'm kind of joking in the question, but I think the way you explain that helps to get across a bit of why we prioritize short-term missions. I think we've gone through different seasons over the years, even of evaluating and reevaluating, like, why are we doing this? Like, is this the most effective way to nurture these and continue these relationships? But we found that they're not just trips, right? It's both a relationship building that takes place that can't happen any other way. But it's also transformative, both for those we're visiting and for us. And I'm excited as we continue to do short-term trips and visit our key partners globally, that I hope even just hearing that, some people might entertain the possibility of joining us that maybe otherwise like, oh, I hadn't really thought about that. I don't know how.
Yeah.
So that's exciting.
Well, let me give you the opposite view. I love AfRU. I love Uganda.
Yeah.
I've, as you said, this would be my 3rd time. And I had the complete opposite feeling going into it. I was like, I just don't think I can do this trip. And it was more my own. I always, think I'm just overwhelmed or I have a lot going on. I had just come out of having COVID. Like the Monday before we left, I finally tested negative, so I was able to go. So there was just a lot going on, and I just was like, I don't really need to go, right? They'll be fine, like without me. Like nobody needs me there.
She did try to back out 3 times a couple weeks before. I mean, when you got COVID, that wasn't like trying to back out.
Yeah. But it was kind of like, oh, well, I guess I'm not supposed to go. Like, okay. And I thought, I'll prepare the team. I'm preparing, doing all the coordination. That's sufficient, right?
Yeah.
So I have this opposite of like this negativity and this kind of, I'm expecting kind of the worst of like the plane rides and things like that. I'm thinking of all the negatives. And then, so to answer, how was your trip? It was I'm so glad I went. It was so incredible on many ways, and that's what we'll get into on the podcast. And just, I'm I'm on the other side of it. I'm so glad, and I can't wait to go again. So my trip was awesome.
Yeah. So before we dive in, actually, I wanted to give a little bit of background on our relationship with AfRU, not ARU. We've been calling it ARU for years.
It's hard.
It's been rebranded.
It's been rebranded as AfRU.
Yep. Yeah, and if you're, it's not a natural thing to go AfRU, but
apparently there's another ARU, and so uppercase A, lowercase f, uppercase R, uppercase U is how they're now branded AfRU.
Sounds like a cheer, like A, little f, R, U, AfRU. Okay, go. I got nothing. The background of the partnership.
The background of the partnership was we've been partners with this school since it started as GABA Bible Institute 16 years ago, something like that. And then moved locations, developed into a Bible college. It was originally just training pastors and doing theology, then seeing the need for not just pastors to be trained in theology and in a Christian worldview, which is a huge need across Eastern Africa, but also Christians in the churches who are in various careers, particularly social work, childhood development, things like this that are it started actually looking at people that were working for Christian organizations, but that weren't necessarily equipped with a Christian worldview for the work that they were doing. And so it's developed into a college, developed into a university, developed bachelor's programs, now master's programs. And all along we've gotten to partner with them at each stage along the way and see the growth that the Lord's doing and the leaders that the Lord is growing and multiplying and sending out throughout Eastern Africa from there. And so when we say a key and long time partner, one of the things that is really meaningful to us is the long-standing relationship and the years and years of faithfulness we've gotten to see, which I know for me just gives me a ton of confidence in these types of global partnerships, which are also kind of the nature of our ideal global partnerships, are these long-standing relations, not just kind of throwing money or hopes at something, but developing as we go. So, Reggie, this was your first. I know you knew about AfRU, but this was your first time visiting, first time to Uganda. What surprised you most about just this partner or this partnership that maybe is something you didn't know or didn't realize going in?
So going into this, I originally, and I've obviously been coming at Cornerstone for a while, and I remember, when these trips would be announced, and to think, I feel like my response was what I would imagine a lot of folks' response might be, which is, "Oh, that's really cool for someone else." Yeah. Like that, and genuine, just like, "Oh, no, this is great. I love that this is happening. Very cool that someone is doing that." And I feel like from the first time I heard about AfRU, that was my initial response. And then just as the years went by, it kept tilting ever so regularly towards, that's cool that that's happening to someone else. That's cool that that's happening. I'm interested in what it is. Do I maybe want to go? No. And it just, built over time, which was just really, really cool. And then I thought really going to go, or really thought I was going to go in 2020. Mm-hmm. And then something happened in the world. I can't remember. Can't quite put my finger on it.
Also a blur.
Yeah, seriously. All right. So then that happened. So then that pushed it off to this year. But I think in terms of what surprised me, not even necessarily something that surprised me that I didn't know was, or didn't expect to happen, but was the way in which going out there and being there and fellowshipping and teaching and just doing everything that we did there. Was surprising was how natural it felt, how right it was, how good, and just instantly familial. I think that was, because it's the kind of thing where, like, as a concept, I think any, mature believer worth their salt is going to understand, like, sure, every Christian is our brothers and sisters in God's family. And I feel like we understand and accept that intellectually.
Mm-hmm.
But once you see that lived out, and once you experience it, the experience of that is fascinating. And it's one thing when you have that, like, here at Cornerstone with, like, brothers and sisters that that you see every week, that you have a fondness for, that you hang out with. Sure, that makes sense. I have never met or seen any of the people that I saw the week that I was there before in my life.
Mm-hmm.
The instant bond, the instant, like, oh man, connection that was there, that surprised me. And I don't even know why, but, like, it was just that good. The time was that good, and God was moving that much, I think, amongst us.
That's so cool. That's so cool. One of the things that stood out to me and surprised me about you was it was so exciting to get to see after, I don't know, however it was 10 years ago, the thought of being a pastor to you was like,
same thing.
I think similar. Yeah. That's for someone else.
Yep.
That's cool. Somebody should definitely do
That's
that.
Great
and to see the Lord kind of grow you into a pastor and faithfully serving here, seeing you grow into that pastoral role here, and then see you teaching others about what it's like to be a pastor. And these students who don't, may not have any experience and are kind of early in their education, getting a glimpse of that. It was really exciting to see, because I think it was just bearing fruit that I think the Lord continues to bear fruit that always surprises us all, right? At every season. So,
and I think the cool thing too is that, like, so in going and in being there, like, there's many ways in which we live out our lives as Christians, with our families, with our friends, in our work, and whatever it is that we do. But I feel like there's something special about going, about literally leaving where you live, leaving everything that is part of your routine, part of whatever, and going somewhere else and serving. That there's something unique about that is just different than, even serving here at home, but just being away, being removed from what's normal to you and being away and somewhere else and seeing the same God, seeing the same fellowship, the same love, the same, all of those things. There's something unique about that it can't be replicated where you live. That was really powerful and just an awesome thing to experience. And as such, so it's not, basically all of which is to say, it's not just for pastors. Every one of y'all who are listening right now, but I'm not a pastor. It doesn't matter. Like, neither were 7 of the 9 people on the team, but that experience, that what God had for all of us is something that he has for all those who follow in obedience.
Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of a unique opportunity with that team, and I want to talk more about that team too. First, I'm going to let you cough if you want.
It went away.
I
was going to sneeze.
Oh, were you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Was that a sneeze, not a cough?
I started to sneeze, and as I was holding it, it like dissipated, fizzled, whatever the word is.
Sure.
Defizzled.
Defizzled.
See, that's why when we don't videotape this, you miss all these treasures. While I was talking, I just watched, Steph's face was priceless. Let me turn away from the mic and hold.
And it's gone.
But it was gone. It was well done. Well done. Congrats.
All right. Steph, you've been there a couple of times before. What struck you the most on this visit?
Definitely what Reggie said, but also I shouldn't have been surprised by this, but I was. I was so struck by the pure, genuine joy of the staff, the leadership, and the university as a whole. But really, we have the closest relationship with the staff team, and I don't know why I expected it to not be, coming out of COVID, I just, people here are like stressed out, really kind of like down and feeling really empty. I think we are. I'm speaking for myself, maybe. And when I went there, the joy in the Lord and their joy in where they're at, where God has them, what God is doing, and how God is working, I was really struck by that. And there's a two-part to that. It also was rooted in their faith. Like their faithfulness, their trust in the Lord, how it bears the fruit of being like faithful. And they were just able to be really calm and present with us. They weren't scurried and flustered. And I think that's how I operate as I'm busy and trying to get things done. And if things aren't going well, I kind of get hyped up and I'm wound up. And yet I got there and I just was able to just serve, live, and like really just be reset by their joy and their faithfulness. And just really seeing how their faithfulness, we'll probably get into this a little bit later, but their faithfulness also, there was some tangible fruit from it. And I just was like, it wasn't just this feeling of, hey, these people are faithful. I was able to see how they've trusted God through these last couple of years, being faithful to that and how he used it and blessed it abundantly. It was just really, really cool. And I can't wait to share more about that. But I feel renewed and encouraged so much by their our fellowship with them and our partnership with them.
That's so cool. All right, so I do want to talk some more about some of that fruit and things we saw. But before we get there, since we're talking kind of specifically about this trip, I would also love for you to share just what stood out to you about the team, because I think it's also something that I think can encourage people who want to be involved with some of our global partners, but maybe feel like they don't know how, or their skill set maybe doesn't, obviously fit it or whatever. I think we saw some really cool ways the Lord used the individuals in this team. I'd love to hear you reflect on that.
I loved this team. I love every team.
Were
but it's
we
been
your
years.
favorite team?
Each team has favorite things about them. And obviously I hadn't been with a team. I didn't realize it had been 7 years since our last full team. And so it hadn't felt like that long, but it was. And this team was incredible. God felt like he handpicked the people that were needed and the skills, and that people believed, hey, I have something to give, even if it's just myself, right? And the faithfulness to go. And then even before you go, sometimes some of the planning is like, well, am I going to be useful? I don't know if that was just my thoughts, or people, wrestle with, well, what am I really going to do? And you get there and you realize there is just so much opportunity of how God can pre-plan for your coming, and how he aligned partners on staff that are working in the same kind of lanes you are, whether it's in finance or business or medical centers or theology or worship or social work, And so it was really, really beautiful to see people just show up to the call. They came and said, hey, this is my skill set. And what really struck me about this team was their flexibility. Is adaptability a word?
Yeah,
okay.
Totally. Oh,
You guys are like the big word, and Pastor Brian, I feel like I get around you guys, I'm like, I don't know if I'm saying real words. So their flexibility.
We just make them up.
Just say it with confidence.
Yeah,
Yes.
it sounds like a word.
Their
That's all it is.
adaptiveness, is that also a word? It might be. Okay, so their flexibility really struck me, because I think as a planner and as the coordinator of the trip, I'm really feeling this weight to that they expect something of me, right? To have it all together and all the details and get everybody equipped and everybody aligned and assigned, and that it's going to go perfectly. And that is not how a lot of times the planning went, and even with my best efforts. And the team, I got to tangibly experience God's grace and kindness through this team. They just showed up, and they were so supportive of me, but they also just so flexible for hey, however God wants to use me while I'm there. And there was a lot of opportunity where they did things that were outside of the original plan and just rolled with it and showed up and were ready to learn and serve. And it just, guys, it was just, there's something just so beautiful about it. Getting to see your sisters and brothers active in their faith that I haven't maybe been able to have that same experience here. Sometimes you serve on Sundays or at a VBS or something like that, but gosh, there was something just really beautiful. So this team was incredible. I'm so thankful for them. And again, just I really felt this tangible kind of extension of God's grace through each one of them.
And I think that the way in which we sort of had so many bases covered, like as you mentioned, so like Cordell and Vince were both finance guys. Kristen was medical. Scott and I would, pastors and theology and teaching, and I did some worship stuff, and and the kids are just bouncing around doing everything that they did, and except for the social work. I feel like everyone had like their different niches and things that they did or whatever. But again, like you're saying, that it's not just like, oh, here's my department, let me stay here and stay in my lane. Because I'm the person you were describing. I'm just like, well, I don't know what do I have to do? What do I have to offer? And anything like that. It's just like, but when we got there, it was just like all of us, all 9 of us. It's just like, what do you need? And I think so many of us ended up doing things we weren't expecting and just jumping in. Just like, is there a need? Oh, like, sure, I can jump in. I can, whatever it is. So I think that kind of heart, again, this is, I'm speaking to myself, again, for having experienced it, but also to anybody who's listening, who's thinking about, should I go? Just like, if you have a heart to serve, others, then it's like, but there's no but. Like, all you need is that willingness and that adaptability and that desire. And then, like, the Lord will multiply that, which we clearly saw.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and it was such a unique makeup, and I think from people from different backgrounds, like you said, finance, medical, theological, you were able to help not only on the social work side, but also on the administrative and operations side, which was
so
awesome.
Much fun.
And these 3 teenage girls, too, who were a huge blessing, getting a bunch of work done and really helping on the administrative side. And also along the way, I think just being a genuine encouragement because of their genuine faith and the ways that kind of a mutual sharpening we got to see happen in some really, really cool ways. It was a huge blessing to have those girls there too.
Oh yeah.
Which I think also shows that kind of age, whatever, there's ways the Lord wants to use all of us in all sorts of different ways.
It's such a tangible partnership. All different types, carpentry and welding and hair and fashion design and sewing to HR. Yeah, it's such a great variety. And so, if people have skills or just interest or prior history, there's ways God wants you to go.
So I think because of that, I think that there's a breadth of ways to serve. Because of that, I think sometimes it's hard to even to describe what it's like to have a relationship with a university, right? Like an 800 student university. And so I think that that's best communicated, always like in part, but best communicated by looking at some of the tangible fruit that has stood out to us and just some of the relationships maybe that put faces and people on these experiences. I'd love to hear both of your thoughts about either the fruit that you saw that stood out, or maybe a relationship or two that stood out. That would be just helpful to give us that kind of picture of this partner.
I don't want to steal Steph's answer.
That's right.
We were talking before. Steph was like,
"Don't steal my answers.
Don't steal my content, guys."
Should we share answers first?
I literally picked 4 people because I was like, in case they take this one or this one or
well, then you're going to steal my answer.
No, I'm not going to say all 4. It was in case you guys stole my people.
All right, so fruit and or people. Why don't you kick us off, Steph?
I can hit both of those in choosing one person.
Ooh, bonus points.
Look at this.
Yeah,
extra credit.
But I still got to say one thing about somebody else. But I'm okay. I would love to shout out to Jocelyn. When we saw each other, we wept. We were like in tears. And Vice Chancellor David, he is the Vice Chancellor of a university, and his humble leadership, how he made me feel like I was helpful to him at all in any way. I just was blown away, and I was like, okay, thank you. Like, he could have just looked at me as like a little minion, but instead he was like so grateful. And I just, anyways, okay, so that was my shout out. So I picked Jonah. And I think I stole theirs. No,
No, I'm
okay,
good.
So I picked Jonah. I worked with Jonah all the 3 times I've been there. I learned this time that he has been there since the beginning, and I did not know that fun fact. And he never ages, by the way. I think he's been there with the university for what, like 18 years? And I'm like,
and he still looks 18.
He still looks, But yeah, so he's been there since the beginning. I learned that new fact about him. But I think, so a couple things about Jonah. The relationship was, again, he was somebody that exuded joy day in, day out. The man works really long hours and just would greet us every morning with such joy and end the day with such joy and still be texting like after hours to make sure we're all set up for the next day. And it just was his like heart to serve that just seemed like he was, again, serving out of like this unending bucket and well of energy from the Lord. It was just amazing. I was so, just encouraged by him and energized by his service. And why that ties into kind of tangible, you said, the tangible fruit piece. So you think about the last 2 years, we've been hearing about AfRU like kind of struggling a little bit with all the lockdowns from COVID. And I kind of honestly thought we'd be stepping into a campus that was like a mess. It doesn't mean that there's not things that, I'm sure there's like lots of things they're working on that aren't going perfectly, but I kind of anticipated this really dilapidated, like coming out of COVID and it's just falling apart. And we walked in and it was beautiful. This campus was beautiful. And the building was up. I know we've donated in the past to like a fund to help with their postgraduate studies building. We got to not only see it, but work in it. The landscaping was beautiful. I remember the team that went in 2015, we had worked on clearing out this room that was just filled with lumber and dust. And we moved all this stuff out to the fields. And this time I saw it and it was an extension of the library. And so to get to see this and that they had used wood from other parts of campus. They broke down other wood tables and they rebuilt tables in there for the library, and how they just stewarded their resources. They said, hey, what do we already have that God's given us and provided for us that we can be good stewards of? And so I feel like for me, I saw this tangible fruit of a staff team. And particularly I saw, Jonah had a big part in the vision for the landscaping and the campus beautification to help bring more students to be attracted to the university, and how he roped in his staff into kind of helping with that plan and that vision, even down to the pictures you guys saw of us tree planting, that they had waited for us to come so we could help plant trees on this row along the campus. Just really intentional planning and with such little resources, that their faithfulness to trust that, hey, this is what we have already. God's already given us that. What can we do with it? And that how they, like you said, it's like they put their efforts out and then it's like God multiplied it. And just, I always assume that I can't get anything done until I have everything together. And there I came back being like, what do you already have? And that you can trust God to do the work, like come alongside you and trust and just have faith that he's going to work it out. And it just really was a huge mind shift for me, seeing how Jonah worked and had faith in the little that he had on campus, which wasn't a little to him. He's like, oh, what can we do with this? And it just was such a tangible lesson for me through him. And then, of course, obviously the whole staff team. But that was my pick.
That's cool.
Yeah.
What about you, Reg?
What is Dennis's actual position, Dennis Kalama's position at the university?
The deputy vice chancellor.
So he's deputy vice. Okay. All right. So she mentioned David, who's the vice chancellor. My guy is Dennis Kalama, who is the deputy vice chancellor of AfRU.
And who's been here, visited Cornerstone before, for those of you who've been around.
I thought it was David who visited here.
They both
Oh,
did.
they both have. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, Dennis actually stayed with the Fongs, I believe.
He did.
Very cool.
Here.
Yeah.
Nice. So just for you who don't know, so obviously he's the deputy vice chancellor, so he's right below David, but he also is a pastor. He pastors the Lugogo Baptist Church in Uganda. So while we were there, not only was he, at the university, he gave a presentation sort of overview of the university to us and sort of, the history of the university and his vision for the future for the university and just going through all of this stuff. But he also was a pastor at a church there. So he preaches there regularly. I believe he knows 5 languages. He preaches in 2 or 3 of them on a regular basis. He welcomed us all into his home. He's got 4 kids. Like all of these things. And the thing I was thinking is that like, man, he's all of this stuff. And like on paper, if you like put like a list of like, traits or characteristics of a person or accomplishments of a person, just like this dude's kind of a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
You do not get that from him at all. You want to talk about fruit? The word that comes to mind is humility.
Mm-hmm.
That man, it's just like the accomplishments, all the things that he does regularly, his heart to serve, his desire for his people to be saved, not just Ugandans, but all of Africa to know the gospel and be transformed by it, is just so powerful. You see the Lord at work in him, but he's so humble. You really don't get the sense of like, hey, look at me. It's like, no, it's like, hey, look at him. And just seeing that in a man as accomplished as he is was very inspiring.
That's so cool. Yeah, I want to be a pastor like Dennis.
I want to be like Dennis.
Right.
Yep, 100%.
I've just known that for years and experienced that in our relationship, but particularly in this time, he had us. We were there visiting his church on Sunday. He had us all over for lunch. The day before, Saturday, they hosted a missions conference at their church.
What?
I don't know if you knew this.
No.
Like there was a couple of other African pastors from out of town who were like in town, and they did this like mission conference. They had some of their church planters there. I mean, it was just nonstop, but also just joyfully, there to serve and be a part of it. I was so encouraged to hear about their church planting strategy, and I just feel like such kindred spirits in so many different ways, and what the things that they're doing to reach the marginalized across Uganda. Anyways, that was super encouraging.
What was they don't call them unreached.
I was searching for the word. And I didn't.
Neglected? No.
I think, because they say it's the church that is neglected to bring the word to them.
Something like that.
Yeah.
That might be it.
Yeah, I think that was it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and to me, I think some of the most encouraging fruit, what was amazing was the campus did look amazing and kind of stunningly so after the last couple of years. I think we feel this way here, right? Like buildings facilitate a lot of great things, but it also can just kind of be a facade, right? Mm-hmm. It can just like everything can look nice, but it was the combination of that and then reflected in what was going on in the classrooms that were all filled. There was every like lecture I got to overhear was just rich, like in so many different ways. And I got to teach a couple of days. I got to teach bachelor's level students. A few days I did a master's level seminar, and specifically with the master's level students, I was getting to see the fruit of people who'd gone through their degree program and now were pursuing a master's degree, and they were so sharp, so on the ball, asking such challenging questions. Like I felt like I was learning along with them as we were wrestling through things, wrestling through implications of scripture. So on top of it, and then combine that with Desmond, who I know you guys have heard this story a number of times, but Desmond was a student, 10 or 12 years ago, he was a student at AfRU when I was out there teaching a week-long course, and he was an undergraduate student and kind of a punk. Like he was sharp, but he knew he was smart, and it was kind of like, you're going to get good grades, but I'm not sure what this education is going to do for you, And not only did that time in that season equip him theologically, but through the meditation on theology and the investment of those discipling him, like the Lord transformed his heart in some amazing ways. And about 6 years ago, I was out there speaking at actually a completely different location at a totally different part of the country and ran into him. He was like, I didn't even know he was going to be there. Like ran into him. He was teaching at a school. He was teaching at a high school, kind of a Lord ordained thing, and got to talk with him then. It was just so like blessed by the man that the Lord had grown him to become. Well, one thing leads to another, and he became actually when we started donating regularly to ARU and to AfRU and as a church and setting it up in the form of scholarships, he was actually the first recipient of a scholarship for the brand new master's program at
That's
AfRU.
cool.
From our church, and went through the master's program. And I got to spend more extended time with him this trip than I had even in the other iterations. And he's now a professor and pursuing his PhD. And I think it was such a tangible example, not only of the quality of the education, because I just kept seeing that in the pastoral students who were wrestling through things, the master's students, the theology students who were just so sharp and had such great hearts, were really like, but in now a professor who's leading and teaching, who's not only his theology had been shaped by the time there, but his heart and life had been. And it was such a huge affirmation to me of the work that the Lord's doing there, of his faithfulness, even in this partnership that has been through transitions, over the years and been through seasons of question of like, okay, is this what the Lord wants us to be involved in? Or is I've never felt more confident, more excited about this relationship. And so that was really unique and special. And because of those interpersonal, both relationships and interactions, that was really neat to see.
It's awesome. The other, just a side note for people to know, the other student that receives a scholarship, because our giving gives 2 scholarships, and we got to go to the church of. Oh yeah,
he became a church planter.
Pastor Dennis.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. The other Dennis.
The other Dennis. Matuga Bible Church, and they also they're currently expanding into figuring out how to be a multilingual church, which was an awesome opportunity for us when we got Pastor Reggie preached there on Sunday, and the kids and I worked in the kids ministry during a service, and said, gosh, we got to figure out how do we expand so we can preach in the local kind of Lugandan language, in addition to kind of an English service. And we got to share a little bit about how we did that here. And but that was our other, the other student that has received the scholarship from Cornerstone. It was so cool to see that fruit as well.
Oh, incredible. All right. So when you think about, I want to, it's so encouraging to think back and reflect on some of these things. When you think about the future of AfRU and the future of our relationship with them and just the work that the Lord's doing there, what are you most excited about?
It's funny. The first thing that came to mind, and this seemed like I might be like cheating it, but
Jesus.
Yes, the Lord. No, but I think the thing is that, I mean, we saw them at work. We come alongside them, worked with them. Like, it was such a rich experience. Like, the thing I kind of feel like, they're good. Like, they're great. Like, but the thing that I'm excited about is what this trip did for the 9 of us. And hopefully what our reporting of that trip will do for those who come after us. And the ways in which our church, the ways in which Cornerstone, although, 9,000 miles away, is still able to work closely with men and women on the other side of the world and be family. And like, Steph was saying, like, seeing, someone like crying, oh, it's so good to see you, and hugging. Like, if the Lord has it for me to go back, which I very much want to. Like, I have that now. And wow, that's so cool. And like the new people on the next team who, man, I remember when they went on, back in 2022 and how awesome it was. And now here I am and, oh, this is amazing. Cool. And just the ways in which the Lord keeps providing and the fact that all of this is happening within the context of service. Because like we weren't there as tourists. We weren't there being like, oh, this is nice and looking at things. But it's like, no, we were hard at work. Like, I mean, at the end of each day, it was just like, oh boy, like we all like ate dinner well. We all like craved our beds by the end of each day, but it was such a good tired. It's the best kind of tired you can be. Like, but working in the way we did and to help those people. And I think about not just the team that will come next, those who have yet to go, but those who are going to send, who now having heard all this, who understand more like what's happening and like what this is about and what it's accomplishing, and being more active and deliberate senders is also cool. Because I feel like AfRU's great and they're just going to keep faithfully serving and growing. And the fact that they're only technically as a university, I mean, I know the Bible Church started a while ago. They only became a university in 2011, 2014, something like that.
They were recognized as a university.
Right. So it hasn't been that long, but for the amount of growth that they've had in such short a time is astounding. So I have no doubt that the Lord is going to continue to bless and grow them. So I guess I'm excited for how we get to partner alongside of that. And join them in that, but also just excited. I'm also just excited to see what, in fact, the Lord will do and how the effects of what happens on that campus will spread throughout Uganda and the rest of the continent.
It's a cool vision.
Yeah, I I agree about the who's next, and excited to see our partnership grow as through people. Whoever sent or sending, right, and supporting those that are sent. So, but I think my answer, one is just, I have a lot of confidence and I know and trust and have experienced it. I know the Lord is there and I know that he is working in his people, through his people. And it is, as we talked about, it is so evident. And so that I'm excited just for the people that are there and how he's at work. But really, I'm excited to see their growth. As you mentioned, Pastor Dennis Kalama did a campus tour for us, really in depth. And guys, I mean, what I loved most is, a lot of times if you've ever kind of been in around missions, a lot of times it's teams will focus on what do they need and how can we go and like those people are in need and we need to go, we see their need and we're going to go and like fix it or something. But really on the campus tour, it's like they knew their own needs and they were very clearly able to really paint the picture for us. And it was probably really different than what anybody else would pick. We couldn't even pick out half the things. And I wanted to quickly highlight a few things. So as we walked the campus, one thing that you don't even realize is there is no fencing around the entire campus. It is completely accessible from the community, which is could be part of that is like a good thing.
Yeah.
Because it is a very like outward facing, trying to be a welcoming place to a community. But at the same time, it's really left them susceptible recently, particularly with some attacks. And so they really recognize, hey, we have to figure out how to get a secure campus for our students and our staff. And a fence is probably something we would have never seen, right? And so without walking and really, really him painting the picture of the future of kind of what the needs were. So I know that's an area of growth. They have a beautiful library and the extension of the library, but really this vision to build an entire building that is state of the art with library resources, not just books, but also the online library that was one of the partnerships asks when we come home is, hey, if you have connections to universities and they're like online JSTOR and databases for, research articles, our library could be even bigger because we have access to online resources. And so they have this vision for this new building that's going to have the computer labs and the library all kind of in one space, and knowing that that's a draw for more students. and that just makes them more resourced and equipped for, access to learning. And most books obviously, right, expire, but they can kind of have access to newer things with that. And then the medical center has been built, but there is a big need for an extension, right? And so like to get there and see it and think it's going great, and they're like, actually, there's a big barrier here for us to be able to offer a few different types of services because we need this extension. There's an add-on to their medical center that they need, and two more. They really want to build a church, and they're going to build it at the front gates so that it's open to the community, right? So that right when you enter, and they used, there's another university in town in Kampala that's like the biggest one in Uganda, and right at the entryway is a big Muslim, I forget what that's called. The
minaret.
Yeah, but it's like the big symbol right at the entryway, and they said we want it right at our gates that it's open to the community to come to church, and it's a great training tool for the theology students and people like that to come and actually get rotations in worship and preaching and prayer and Bible studies, and so it's kind of a training ground and a community church.
And they already have a church meeting.
Yes,
there,
they do.
Right, so
yes.
the church exists. But they need space for it. They've outgrown it. I mean, we saw it in chapel where like literally people just kind of sitting outside the windows.
Yes.
Because the room's full.
Yeah, and right now it functions kind of like a university chapel where they really want it to be.
And I was talking about the local church on Sundays too.
Oh yes, I'm sorry, you're right.
That meets in that same space.
Right, but it's in the center of campus, and they want it right at the gates. That when you enter, you know that this is a Christian university.
You don't have to like enter all the way into the university campus to go to church.
Right.
It's part of this.
And just even ways of, I know I mentioned on Sunday, culinary arts and catering. There's just all these ideas that they have of these tangible skills. How do we be a place that can host teams? Because right now we're off-site, but we could be hosted on-site. And how do they serve food to the community or be able to have events on campus? And that generates, right? They're thinking ahead of this vision of how do we generate our own income? How do we be a place that is welcoming and hospitable to our community? And the things that are going on in Uganda as a way to reach people and be of service to them so they can experience Christ. And it's just, gosh, that vision, guys, was like, I could see it, and I want to be a part of it, and I hope that our church can, I know we are going to be a part of it, but I hope others can catch that vision. And I want to quote Cordell. He said, I'm going to misquote him. Here we go. He had said something like, that he is now their biggest fan. Yeah. Right? Like he's heard about the partnership. It's great and all, but after going, he's like their biggest fan. I want that. Everybody be their biggest fan.
Yeah.
That was long.
No,
I had a lot about their future.
It was great. I mean, and I think it was so exciting to have Cordell and Kristen there, both as like really new members, but now a part of this relationship. And I'm excited for just kind of the next wave of the church family to get to connect with a number of our different partners and with ARU in particular. So, so when are we going back, Steph?
Well, so we typically try to at least go every 2 years. That's kind of our goal as a church, right? We want to see people regularly. That's part of being a key partner, is we want to not just, support you financially, but we want to have a mutual relationship and fellowship. Yeah. And part of that is also spending time together, which means trips, right? But I heard you say, I'm going to hold you to it. We could go more than, I
think we need to go next year. I think we need to do this again next year.
Yeah.
I can't go. I'm going to say it now, but I think somebody should.
Yeah. Gosh. And
if only there was a pastor that was familiar with the space. That
could lead the team. There's a whole chunk of, we didn't even touch like the facilities and maintenance needs that were there. In solar panels and security and plumbing and welding. There's a whole new team that could just go 6 months from now if you know. But so I would love to go back at least 2 years. We're not going to let 5 to 7 years pass again. COVID, do you hear that? Okay, thank
you. And what other short-term? So the other piece to this is, if this is like the only thing or the only partner we were talking about, it might be a little bit different. But what are the other? I'm curious what's in your head. I have an answer in my head, but what are the other opportunities that we're hoping will come up in the next year?
with AfRU or other partnerships?
Other partnerships.
So in Lasse recently, if you remember from the Christmas Partnership Ask, they work in a lot of places, but we had partnered with them for some years in El Salvador. But recently they have expanded into Guatemala. And that was super exciting for us because Pastor Jose is from Guatemala. And I know many people in our church are. And so just kind of, wow, it felt like it was an answer to prayer, kind of the specific region that Enlace has expanded to. So we really hope that we can send a team to go partner and do community development work with Enlace in Guatemala. We also have Craig and Lisa. They're in, I don't know, we could say the actual.
Oh,
let's start that again. Ready? Yeah. Let me pause and say that again. Ready? And are you pausing actually on there?
No, I'm just gonna cut it out. Okay. People are gonna experience that they're in the, and then they're gonna hear me laugh. And then,
okay. I was gonna say, or I could just pause and say it again. Ready? Our other partners are
in Southeast Asia.
Yeah. There, that was it. I was looking for the phrase. So we have some partners that are back in Southeast Asia. We have Craig and Lisa G, and they have a couple unique opportunities. But I know every January, February, they do a medical outreach that's specifically outreaching to Muslim families, and so that is a great opportunity coming up in the beginning of 2023 that we could put into place.
And the Humbles.
Yeah, thank you.
yeah, that was the other one on my on my list.
How about you share about?
And we can mention that they're in Indonesia.
Okay.
And
Oceania.
And they visiting them and as a part of their ecotourism, which really provides an open door to the gospel. We were hoping to be able to take a team there as well in the next year. And so I guess I'd say two things to those listening. Number one, if you haven't thought about being a part of the growing relationships and developing relationships and deepening relationships with our global partners, it's a great way to be involved with what God is doing globally and what he's doing through us here at Cornerstone. I'd love for you to consider it and think about it and pray about it. And number two, the thing that makes these happen most often is the interest and passion of those that want to go. And so talk to us. We will provide opportunities, but you also don't have to just wait for something to get announced. Like as any of these things, and as you hear even throughout the year about these partnerships, pique your interest or desires or if the Lord's stirring in any ways, we would love to facilitate those relationships. Sometimes we've taken full teams. Other times just a couple of people have gone.
Yeah.
And those are all huge opportunities. Again, not for, it's different. It's not vacation. It's not tourism, but it's a incredibly powerful way to be a part of the work the Lord's doing through our local church and through the extension of that through these global partners.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Well, just that we have some new partners coming up. And so keep tuned in, I think.
Yeah.
Keep reading your emails, keep coming on Sunday to listen to God's activity. And maybe if you want to hear my voice again, we could do another podcast about some of our upcoming partners that are coming on board, just kind of some development or developing partners. And yeah, but gosh,
in just a couple of weeks, we'll have the Diddies on the podcast too.
Right. Yeah. So, that's what I was thinking of. And yeah, I really ask people to also join in prayer for our partners. I think sometimes that was something else that was evident, right? The prayer life there was just so rich and reliant on prayer. And here I just ask the same. Prayer really is effective and a useful tool and a way, obviously, we know, to talk to God. But yeah, I'd love to keep praying for all of our partners.
Yeah. Awesome. It's a great exhortation. Great way to end. Thank you so much, Steph. Thanks for your time today.
Yeah.
I know you got to now go plan VBS game or Cornerstone Kids Camp games.
Yeah.
So we'll release you to that.
Yeah.
Reggie's got to like prepare the energy as a team leader for Cornerstone Kids Camp.
It's going to be a great week.
It really is. Excited for that. So thankful for both of you and your sacrifices on, for today, but also just for the time and the trip too.
Can I say thank you that this is a part of my job? I know I used to volunteer in it, but I just love it so much. It's amazing.
Praise the Lord for that.
Okay.
Thank you so much for doing it. We are overwhelmed by that. So thank you guys. And thank you all for listening. We love you. And we'll see you on Sunday.